Hello, I'm Debbie Russ with the BBC News. Saudi Arabia has recalled its ambassador in Lebanon and given the Lebanese envoy in Riyadh 48 hours to leave the country. The Saudi authorities also said they would stop all imports from Lebanon. The decision follows what the Saudis considered insulting statements by Lebanon's Information Minister Georges Kordahi before he took office. Tom Bateman reports.
The latest trigger was the emergence of old comments by Lebanon's information minister appearing to label Saudi Arabia as aggressors in the war in Yemen. But the bigger source of Saudi anger is the growing dominance in Lebanon of Hezbollah, the heavily armed Shia movement backed by Iran. Riyadh has always wanted the group's grip diminished. Pulling out ambassadors puts even more pressure on Lebanon. Currently in the midst of such an economic and political crisis, many are wondering how many more blows it can take before a complete collapse.
President Biden has met his French counterpart Emmanuel Macron ahead of the G20 summit of world leaders in Rome. Their first face-to-face talks since a diplomatic spat over a submarine deal sidelined France. The US President told Mr Macron Washington had been clumsy when announcing the deal with Britain and Australia, adding his country could not have a more loyal ally than Paris. For his part, Mr Macron spoke of rebuilding confidence. Our North American correspondent John Sopel is travelling with Mr Biden.
I think the French would want to move on from it, although they were clearly furious. I mean, the French withdrew their ambassador from Washington, and that just hadn't happened before in the history of this kind of long relationship. And America's relationship with France is the oldest relationship, both formed out of the revolutions of, 250 plus years ago. So I think that it was a really serious breach, and I think Joe Biden is trying to make it better. It's hard to see what the French have got out of it, though, that is of any significance if they were looking for some kind of payback for the slight that they felt had been delivered.
The United Nations Secretary-General, Antonio Guterres, says the world is heading towards disaster if more is not done to combat climate change. Mr Guterres said there was a serious risk that the climate summit in Glasgow next week would not deliver. He said the international community had miles to go on its climate goals, describing recent pledges by governments as an illusion.
And the best-case scenario, temperatures will still rise well above 2 degrees, and that is a disaster. I think we are still on time to put things on track, and I think this G20 meeting is the opportunity to do that.
Mr Guterres said a severe lack of trust between countries was stopping cooperation on tackling the climate crisis. World News from the BBC. The Greek Coast Guard says it's carrying out a major sea rescue east of Crete after a Turkish-flagged cargo ship carrying about 400 migrants began having engine difficulties. Here's our Europe regional editor, Danny Eberhardt.
Greece's Coast Guard said it located the cargo boat near Crete on Friday morning. A spokesman told the BBC he believed there were Afghans and Pakistanis on board. He said they were safe and that the Coast Guard was awaiting instructions from Greece's Migration Ministry about where to take them. But he stressed that it would be to a Greek island. The Norwegian charity Aegean Boat Report said it feared Greece would try to tow the boat into Turkish waters and set it adrift. Greece has faced numerous allegations that its officials on land and maritime borders carry out migrant pushbacks, which it denies. Such operations would be illegal under international law.
Thousands of Malians have taken to the streets of the capital, Bamako, to protest against what they say is foreign interference in the country. The demonstrators denounced the West African regional bloc, ECOWAS, and the former colonial power, France, for criticising the military leaders who've staged 2 coups since August last year. The Taliban rulers in Afghanistan have sent an envoy to run the country's embassy in Pakistan, more than 2 months after they seized power. Mohammad Shoaib will be the first secretary at the embassy in Islamabad, but will not have the formal title of ambassador, as Pakistan does not officially recognise the new regime. The Polish Parliament has approved a bill to build a wall along part of its border with Belarus to help prevent migrants from crossing illegally. It will cost more than $400 million. Critics have said it will be a waste of money. In recent months, Poland, Lithuania and Latvia have seen a surge in migrants, mostly from the Middle East. That's the latest BBC News.